Welcome to the Creative Warriors Podcast, the female heart and soul of photography. Welcome back to the Creative Warriors Podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to Lindsay Herkert.
You said it right.
I did. Yep. Oh, cool. I totally murdered another poor photographer's name I'm embarrassed by. And we were supposed to practice that ahead of time. But anyway, so welcome back, audience, and welcome Lindsay. And I am so excited to introduce you to her. She is a light photographer. I loved how you described yourself. She's obsessed with finding beautiful light to document the daily life of her family. She's published and award-winning. She has a portrait photography business focusing on maternity, newborns, and families, along with branding photos for business owners. She lived mostly in Southern California, but now she moved to Texas, Austin, Texas, about 5 years ago, where amazingly, she built her photography business for a second time. I really hope we dig into that because that is a fascinating fact. Because doing it once is hard. Doing it twice, It's got to be harder. So before I steal all your thunder, Lindsay, welcome.
Thank you, Ariel. I'm happy to be here.
Good. Can you share a little more than what I just said, because I'm sure there's way more, about your personal journey and how you became a photographer?
Sure, I'd love to. So it was 14 years ago that I started. My son was born, and I feel like that was right around the time that the DSLR and available light photography was really catching its stride. And my best friend said, "Oh, you should get newborn pictures done." And I think it was like the week before he was born. And I set something up really quick, and I got the pictures back, and I was I had never seen anything like that before. So I just became enamored with photography and then also my son. So I asked for a Canon Rebel for my birthday, and I didn't know the first thing about it. And I read the manual 3 times, front to back.
Good girl.
I wanted to learn, but I didn't know how to. So I thought I'd start there. About a year later, I was at a birthday party, and there was a photographer there, and she guided me to Click and Moms. I think it's Click and Company now, but at the time it was Click and Moms. And that's where I really started diving into the learning process. And I was just obsessed with, documenting our family and my kids. And then I started taking pictures of my friends' kids, and one thing led to another, and I started a business in San Diego. And then I think the next big thing was around 2014, I wanted to apply to be a Click Pro. It was sort of like a pipe dream, because I just referred to those women as like the cool kids, and I wanted to be one of them. And it seemed like such a huge jump. And it took me about, I think, a year, and I didn't really start until like the end of 2015 building my portfolio. For those of you that don't know, a Click Pro, you have to submit 150 images, and you're graded on them in different categories, and hopefully you make it. So I made it at the end of 2017. It was a huge journey for me, just building that portfolio and becoming an intentional photographer.
It's very educational, that process.
Oh, it's so eye-opening. I mean, before I was just shooting to document, and then through that I learned how to shoot with intention and really understand light and everything. And I made a lot of good friends along the way. And then we had a surprise move, like to Texas, less than a month after I found out I made Click Pro.
Oh my gosh.
So, and then I've just, I opened my business here, and it's just evolved over time. And that's pretty much it.
Very, very nice.
Yeah.
Just a little side note.
Mhm.
About 2 years ago, I applied to Click Pro, and I was 1 point
Oh,
under.
oh my gosh. That is like the worst thing ever. It's so hard. Did
It's like,
you?
oh my gosh, 1 point. Well, actually, I mean,
It's so mean that they do that.
well, no, I didn't think so. I mean, I didn't mind. I mean, to me, I knew it was
Yeah.
an education. I knew I had
A journey.
weaknesses. I
Yeah.
knew I had weaknesses. I just didn't know exactly where they were. So they showed me what those were. I haven't reapplied since, but I will. Just one of those things on my list. Many
Right.
things on my list. I mean, I do mostly nature. So they have a lot more portrait, family, documentary.
They're definitely heavy on documentary, I feel like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I wasn't sure if I was a good fit anyway, but there's a lot of nature photographers too in there. But
Yes.
anyway, so I understand the journey and the
Yeah.
frustration of, falling by 1 point.
Oh, one of my best friends had the same thing happen to her and she reapplied and made it. But man, my heart it is a really hard just goal. It's, if you go to college and you just take all the classes and you know what you have to do to graduate and you just do it. But Click Pro it's so from within, you know, the journey. There's not like if you just check all these boxes, then you make it. It's not like that. It's just difficult, but well worth it.
Yes, it is. So we're talking about challenges and obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
Besides moving, and that might be the one, but can you describe some of the specific challenges or obstacles that you faced in your efforts in to be more intentional in your photography work?
Sure. Okay, so I guess I'm going to talk about the journey to Click Pro because that was when I really slowed down and started analyzing what I was doing. And there's something that I heard about on a podcast called The Creative Gap. And it's what you have in your mind, your creative vision in your mind, and then the gap that happens when you actually go to create that vision. And I felt like that happened a lot to me when I was building my portfolio for Click Pro. I had a vision in my mind of what I wanted a photograph to look like. I went to create it and it fell flat. And so it's funny, but for me, having a name for that made me feel stronger to keep pushing through it. It didn't feel like I failed. It just felt like, oh, that's just the creative gap. I just need to work to shorten that or analyze the photo and try again. So I think that is just good to keep in mind when you are slowing down and pushing yourself and pushing your limits. Just keeping in mind, like, it's not always going to work out the first time, but just to keep moving forward with it.
Very good advice. I agree 100% with the understanding the whole process. So understanding that gap is natural. It's a part of the process. Makes it
Yes.
easier for you to deal with it rather than, oh, I'm just failing. No, that's just part of the process.
Yes.
So you just got to go through it. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you think your perspective on photography obviously from the very beginning when you first got your camera,
Mm-hmm.
how has your perspective changed?
Well, I feel like the photography industry as a whole, I think I've fallen more in love with it because of, I know it sounds weird because I'm not really into social media, but I do love Instagram for sharing photos and being inspired by other photographers. And I feel like in the last few years, especially, there's such a transparency and sharing of information and lifting one another up. And when I first started and I didn't know what to do, and I was, I wasn't on Instagram I don't even know if Instagram existed at that time, but I mean, I was reading my manual because I didn't know. Whereas nowadays, it's so easy to find the information. And I do feel like photographers, just as a group, are very sensitive and uplifting, helpful people. So I think because of that, I've just fallen more in love with it. Whereas sometimes you pick up a hobby and, it kind of wanes. Like mine has just grown stronger over the years.
Well, and what started out as a hobby is now a way for you to
make money. That's true.
Yeah. and that's one of the biggest challenges for a lot of photographers. They invest a great deal in their equipment, and then they're like, man, I got to figure out a way to fund this hobby.
So the business part is a whole other animal. And it's funny because when I started my business in San Diego, I was learning photography as my business was growing. And I come from a marketing background. Before I was a photographer, I was a marketing director, and I have a marketing degree. And I'm so embarrassed about how I ran that first business, knowing everything I know. But it's so different to be in business for yourself when you're creating something. It's not a commodity, it's like a creation. And it really took a lot of intentional work to become profitable and sustainable. I think like a crazy number of photographers leave the industry within like the first 60, or I think it's 60% of photographers leave the industry within the first year of business because it's so hard. It really is difficult. So I don't know. But again, it's because of other photographers and sharing their wisdom with me that's elevated me and helped me to be able to grow my business to what it is now.
Oh, wow. And that goes along with the course that you're working on right now. And you have all that. That's a really valuable, knowledge set.
Yes.
Marketing, because like that's where I lack. I come from the design world, but I have very little marketing skills. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's a whole nother beast.
It is. And just, setting time aside to get all your systems in place. But it's so worth it because I feel like if you don't do that, then like you're not in control of the situation and you end up getting taken advantage of. And
oh, absolutely.
And then you stop liking photography, because you just get burnt out and worn out. So I think it's important to, if you decide to be in business, to take the time and figure out how to set it up almost to protect yourself, and protect your love of photography. So
that's good advice. Upgrade your experience with our premium subscription. Enjoy exclusive features, enhanced content, and seamless extended interviews. Elevate your enjoyment and personal growth with our premium subscription today. If you enjoy the Creative Warrior podcast, the female heart and soul of photography, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Thank you. Early on, somebody told me that the one thing photographers need to learn more than, the exposure triangle is business, is the business side of it. Because if you don't have that, you'll always be frustrated. And that was good advice. It was hard to find information. Through the years, I've noticed I'm getting more and more of it. I'm seeing more and more of it because we're realizing that, there's a million videos on Photoshop and Lightroom and how to edit and all that kind of stuff. But there's less on the business side. And there's so many different aspects of the business too. It's not just one there's portrait, there's landscape, there's branding, there's street. I mean, there's so many different directions that a person can go. So then you're like sitting there going,
I know. It is interesting because there is so much information available for learning the art of photography. And it really was hard when I moved. I took that time since I didn't know anybody here. I thought, okay, I'm going to build my business better this time. And I started signing up for classes and workshops. And so often it was just fluff. I don't know how to explain it. Just like,
No, I understand. Yeah.
know your why. I mean, I know that's important, but I was looking for like, how do I get clients without discounting,
The real stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It really, I remember complaining to another photographer while we were at a workshop, and she told me, she said, do you use Google Ads? And I said, no. And she's like, you should do that. And that was like the best piece of advice, business advice anyone has ever given me. I started a Google ad and it completely changed like my whole business trajectory completely. So it's just funny. That's, I feel like
I'll be in your course. I can already tell.
Oh, so I just, again, I appreciate, the community and just the sharing of information. I take that photographer out to dinner every year on her birthday because I'm like, changed my life.
Do you happen to know Linda Nickel?
I don't, huh?
I think she's in your area. She
In Austin?
Anyway, and I think so. She's definitely in Texas. She does on Wednesday night. She has a it was a byproduct of COVID, but she does a happiness hour, and she interviews different people, and they have live conversations. They have presentations, kind of like a camera club presentation thing. It's really neat. So
I'll have to look her up.
I'm giving a shameless plug to Linda.
I'm going to look her up. I just wrote her name down.
Yeah, it's really neat. I'll put it in the description. Since we're talking about it, I'm writing that down so I don't forget. Just for other people, because I believe, especially in this industry, the more you share other people, the more we all grow.
Absolutely.
Part of the reason I'm doing what I'm doing right now, interviewing you, is because you have valuable things to share. And the best way that we communicate that is by talking, sharing, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I have another question for you. It's because you've obviously overcome a great deal of obstacles. Mm-hmm. How do you stay motivated and inspired in your work, even though sometimes there's uncertainty and difficulties?
I think that the uncertainty and difficulty is what I like. I know that sounds weird, but I feel like if I'm not working towards something or putting myself in an uncomfortable situation, then I get bored. So
that's very insightful. That's cool that you know that.
I feel like sometimes I'll have an itch to try something. Like a good example is at the beginning of this year, I kept thinking like, I want to develop a course, on the business side. And I kept trying to put it out of my head, but it's like, it just kept coming back to me, I just feel like the universe is conspiring in your favor. And it's like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I ended up signing up for a course on how to make a course. And I've been working on it since the spring, like nonstop. And it's crazy how almost everything is so much harder than you think it's going to be, But I really feel like that's where I like to be. I like to be working towards something. So.
And how do you feel when you're on the other side of that? Just curiosity. Like when you get this massive accomplishment done and it's succeeding, what does that do for you inside?
Initially, it's always super, I don't want to say disappointing, but like when you finally finish something, you kind of feel like, gosh, I should feel bigger or better. And it's not that. it really is about the journey, getting there. And then it's like, okay, well, I did that. Check that off my list.
What's next?
What's next? But I will say I do keep like a running list of things that I've accomplished that were like scary or hard. And they're all over the board. And sometimes I have to go look at that list when I'm feeling frustrated or like I afraid that I'm not going to achieve something that I set my mind out to. So
That's cool. Do you have a name for it? Just out of curiosity.
no, it's just, I just need like a running list of things to like help me believe that I can do hard things, So
Very cool.
yeah.
You've got a lot of great ideas.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so how do you maintain a sense of confidence and trust in your own creative vision? So, and what I mean by that is, obviously you've developed a style because you're a successful portrait photographer. Your work is beautiful. If I was in that area, I would be calling you. So you had to develop that at some point, and you had to work through all the what is your style issues and overcome all those pieces that get you to that place that you're confident enough to market yourself. So when you're looking at other people's work or how do you keep that inside integrity, if you know what I mean by that?
Sure. So I think what you were talking about right there, defining your style, is so important. And it really helps you. It kind of is your compass as you navigate through growth, I feel like. So I think that it was one of the classes I took, and it had the first part of it was, I think it was a composition class, writing down for 5 minutes just different words to describe your photography style or what you wanted your photography style to look like. And you had to write for 5 minutes, and then you had to choose 3 words that felt like described your style the best or what you wanted it to be. And I thought that was so smart because when I was building my portfolio for ClickPro, and now when I display portfolios on my website, I always have the same 3 ideas in mind of what those pictures should look like. And my goal is always that any picture I show would meet 2 of those 3 words. And it really kind of just helps you to evolve even, because if a few years ago, I started adding branding, which is very different than family and maternity, but I still am able to have it live within my website and still look cohesive because I'm still aiming toward those 3 words,
Do you mind sharing what your 3 words
Oh, sure.
are?
Yeah. So luminous, because light is always a huge factor in my photos. Like I want people to look at the photos and notice the light, like in some creative way. Genuine, I feel like that I'm always striving to either tell a story authentically or get a genuine emotion, not a forced emotion. And then rich in color. I just like rich colors. So I tend to edit with a little bit of a rich color. So those are the 3 things I'm always kind of aiming for. And of course, things change, but those 3 stay the same for me, and they have ever since I defined them. So I feel like it helps me appreciate other people's work better because I can look at it and appreciate it and maybe steal ideas from it, but it's still mine because I'm going to infuse it with those 3 words.
That's actually a very helpful piece of information because the whole style thing can be, I've heard too many people talk about it, and it's still one of those things that are hard to define, but using words, descriptive words that help you isolate who you are. What is it attracting you to that scene? What are the components that make you even want to hit that, click that shutter?
Yes.
Those are the things that create the overall style. Because sometimes, people will go high key, low key, etc. But there's still something that speaks, and having words inside because we are verbal, we're visual and verbal, but they're not like, they're not words that define, that confine you. Because to me, when I say style, I feel confined personally. I feel like if I'm stuck to a style, I'm not allowed to be creative. For me, it feels confining, but the way you described it was very freeing, actually.
Yeah, it is exactly that. Once you have those words, then it's just like I said, like a compass, but it gives you plenty of wiggle room to evolve, and it also just helps you show up confidently, and everybody's always talking about standing out. And I think it's the best way to stand out is just knowing who you are without having to push it, It's just sort of like an internal guidance. So
very, very neat. Cool. So you talked about this a little bit before, but I'm going to ask you to explain it a little bit more. But how do you cultivate a supportive and collaborative network of fellow photographers, female photographers in particular, in the photography industry? I know crypto is a big part of that, but is there any other?
Absolutely. I have so many examples of this.
Okay.
I think the photography community is just amazing. And any big goal I have achieved has been because of the community that I have formed. So I'll give you a few examples. When I was starting out thinking about applying for Click Pro, I joined a group. And at the time there was like a Facebook prep group. At the time there was a lot of, I can't even remember who they were, but big names in there. I was so overwhelmed. I was a wallflower in that group. I posted a couple pictures, I remember, like, for feedback, and nobody said anything. And I was like, these must be so bad. But I sort of watched how they ran the group. And then a year later, I ended up starting my own group. And it ended up being like, I think over 100 people in it. And it was so active, and I based it all on how that first group that I was so shy in, how they set it up. So anytime, and then from that group, I had a little Instagram pod of 16 women, and we were like the smaller group that was just helping each other constantly build our portfolios. And we would just criticize each other's photos. There was no hard feelings. It was just, it was brutal honesty.
Which is needed,
to grow.
Yeah, it is.
And then when I moved here,
needed.
Yeah, it hurts, but in a good way.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when I moved here, I immediately sought out another photographer in my neighborhood, and she could have easily just been like, see me as competition and not help me. But she took me under her wing and told me where all the shooting spots were. And she's one of my best friends to this day. And I just feel like it's because of other photographers always that has helped me like get to my next level of where I want to be. Even in developing this course, there's like a little pod of us that are just helping each other and talking and complaining and sharing ideas and just there to elevate each other. So, I mean, I always just reach out to people, and usually it's online, and just create groups to help me, to keep me accountable and make sure that I reach whatever goal I'm after.
I think we're in an Instagram group together, but I just can't remember.
We are.
The
The
business one?
business-minded one. Yeah.
It's actually how we met.
Mm-hmm. And it's so fun.
It is fun. Thank you, Lindsay, very much.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap this episode up and we're going to come
Okay.
back again next week for some more talk with Lindsay on mindfulness and balance. So come back next week and we will see you again.
Thanks, Ariel. Hi, this is Lindsay, and I'm so excited to share details about a course I'm releasing this fall. It's called Systems for Success. It's a 3-month mastermind for the portrait photographer who is ready to scale her business to consistent 4- and 5-figure months. It includes 6 modules that teach Google Ads, setting up your business, pricing for profit, effective marketing strategies, keys to successful website design, SEO, and a great client experience. The mastermind part includes a Slack channel for questions, website and portfolio review, 2 group coaching calls a month, and homework review. It releases on Black Friday, which is November 24th. And I am so excited to help you build the portrait photography business of your dreams that is profitable and sustainable. If you're interested in being a beta tester for Systems for Success, you can contact me at my email, which is listed below. Or if you want to learn more about the course, you can look at the website link, also located in the notes below.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Creative Warriors. We want to thank Lindsay Herkert for sharing her heart and her soul with us. We hope you enjoyed our fun conversation and gained some valuable takeaways. In our next episode, get ready to learn more with Lindsay. Remember to subscribe or follow The Creative Warriors on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. If you have any thoughts, suggestions, or questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at arielfaithphotography.com. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep the conversation going. Stay curious and have a happy artistic journey. Thank you for listening to the Creative Warriors podcast, the female heart and soul of photography. See you next episode.